Good evening, everybody. We have with us Shaili Chopra, the founder of She the People TV. She's an Indian business journalist and author and an entrepreneur. Welcome to Ahmedabad Book Club, Shaili. It is great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's just wonderful being here with you all at the Ahmedabad Book Club.
So she, of course, is the founder of She the People TV, a platform to empower women with stories of role models and inspire them with a changing conversation on women and what matters to them. As a business journalist, she's known for working at NDTV, Profit and ET Now, and has won 2012 Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Business Journalism, among various other awards. She then switched to being an entrepreneur and wrote 5 books. Her ventures are Indian Women's Channel, She the People TV, and golfingindia.com. Her books include Feminist Rani by Penguin, When I Was 25 by Random House, Big Connect Social Media, Indian Politics by Random House, and Birdies in Business by Times book. I hope that's correct, right?
That is accurate. That is accurate.
That's quite a long list.
Yeah.
So
I know
we're going to be talking today. Sorry. So we're going to be talking today about independence and literature. So Shaili, what is your definition of independence?
So it's interesting that we're talking right on the eve of Independence Day, and this is clearly something that is very dear to me as a notion of having freedom. Born in a country which calls itself and its citizens free, at least on paper. I think it's a huge piece of my identity today that we can have, freedom of speech, have a voice as women, have equal rights so far as freedom of speech goes. That's another thing that I believe is a huge plus. Personally, for me, really, freedom has always meant my ability to exercise my choice, and in many ways that could come through in having the choice to select my career, in having the choice to be a mother, in having the choice to today sort of create a community and help people live on their own terms. So I believe sort of it comes through the gamut of things. For me, freedom is very small in terms of everyday things that we don't think about. Literally taking a walk without somebody saying that this is curfew time, as an example. And on the other hand, it's about big things, talk about issues that women and others face in a very free manner.
So tell me, how are you helping other women to achieve it, the independence by your platform?
Yeah, I think that's important. It's the platform. I mean, I would say we don't ever claim that we are sort of pushing women out there to do something that they are not prepared for. But if a woman is looking to be independent, then She the People has many different avenues in which we help women be independent women. To begin with, we have a conversation, something that we've not really had enough platforms doing at all in a country like India. They're platforms for jobs, they're platforms for sharing recipes. But, it's always like saying, oh, women, just put them in a chat room, in a social network, and that's good enough. I think it's important for women to be in the headlines. It's very important for us to recognize that, at a time when we were looking for independence as a country, when the men were in jail, the women were standing out there doing those protests. It's now we're beginning to document that. those stories have hardly been written. I feel that if I look at women in urban India today or rural India, let's say, in the early 30s, early 20s, early teens, what are they thinking about? They need freedom of thought. They need freedom to think that they can do something. They can have a dream. They can make choices. They can shift. The notion that the head of the table is a man or the person in a black suit is the only leader. We're breaking definitions. So for me, I think the way She the People over the last 5 years has tried to inject a very important debate in mainstream media, from issues of period leave to issues of independent voices and women raising their hand against anything that bothers them. It's a big piece. It's a big piece.
So, what do you feel that, like you just said, during independence, we had a lot of women really, I think, contributing to our independent movement. But I think
Yes.
besides Sarojini Naidu and one or two other women, we really don't hear anything about them. And that is really sad, like you rightly said. But why is that? Why is literature and history not mentioning them?
So if you look at history, history forgets its women very, very easily. And it's because history was written, literally written, documented, researched by men. And I have nothing against men when I make this sort of analysis. But the truth is, we all are born with a certain lens, a certain frame of mind. When we go out there and fetch a story, we ask questions that seem relevant to us. If we don't ask questions about which women helped emancipation of other women, which woman was the first female doctor, of India, which woman picketed fences or picketed protests at a time when their husbands were in jail in Andaman Nicobar during the Quit India or Swadeshi movements. Who were these women, right? So I think the good thing is today, all young women want to know. They want to know their roots. They want to go out there and question and dig and go beyond the surface. The reasons of why this has been forgotten are multiple. Bias of the media back then, bias among those who have traditionally seen rooms full of men, right? I mean, look at the Constitution. There were 11 women who were contributing to shaping India's Constitution, and I got to know just like 3 years ago. Why? Because our history
Got to know today. I never knew there were any actually women formulating our Indian Constitution.
Yeah. So I think this is really where our problems lie. Is that our history books don't have it, our conversations with parents don't have it, our grandparents don't remember enough of women in the forefront because the media back then didn't report it. I just feel that there is an opportunity now to rewrite history. In the last 5 years, we've done what, 250 women of history, right? I mean, you think of a Maharani who fought, you think of Rani Lakshmi Bai, and she was amazing. But there are at least 30 such women that are worth thinking and talking about. And we don't know enough about them.
So, I think with independence, I think basically the definition of it changes, I think from year to year. And you've authored 2 books, right? Like Feminist Rani and When I Was 25. So can you tell us about these 2 books of yours?
Okay, so let me start talking about the more recent one, which is Feminist Rani. Feminist Rani is a best-selling book now, and possibly India's only piece of work on very contemporary definitions of feminism. What I mean by that is that women today look at feminism in so many varied ways, right? There are different people who interpret it differently. For some people, feminism is to be able to raise their children well. For others, it's to be able to go and work in an office. For many of them, it is to be able to just choose not to or choose to do what they are wanting to do. So I think for me, the whole idea was to pick young personalities, both men, women, and actually of all genders, including transgender people, to talk about how they view feminism. How feminism is not a movement against men, it's a movement against a system of patriarchy and what we can do around that. So, Feminist Rani was born out of a series of programs that She the People did around the country, from Bangalore to Bombay, talking to young women and asking them how they were breaking down the definition. So, wearing black is not necessarily feminist. It's just as feminist as wearing pink. You can wear all your makeup in the world and still smash the patriarchy, and it's absolutely possible. So, breaking these silly stereotypes that only add to perhaps slowing down what our real cause is, which is equal rights. It is not about showing that your pink campaign, your yellow campaign, or green campaign. So that was like
burning your bras and stuff like that. I think it
right.
goes beyond that.
I mean, even though after the lockdown, I would say, yeah, let's burn the bras, but still, I'm just saying that really speaking, traditionally they've kept that in the thought process, right? Like when we think of it. So feminist Rani, included like Aditi Mittal as an example, or we went and interviewed a young woman in a village in Satara in Maharashtra and asked her what was her feminism. Then we interviewed Gulpanag, a very unlike feminist. They always say a feminist has to be an extreme thinker. No. If you're making the choice of when to be a mother, when not to be a mother, you have your own degree or brand of feminism. So I always felt that the need for us to unshackle feminism from very, very extreme thinking and make it normal, everyday, simple. So Feminist Rani ended up doing that, and we were very happy.
Feminism is just your rights which you are born with and just utilizing it, which is something so simple, but we in India, we're not even allowed to do that. So
true, yeah. I guess India technically by constitution allows us only if we would change our mindsets. That would be helpful. It's changing slowly though.
Yeah. So tell me, like you said, independence is again a great day to reinvent and rethink yourself. And, the thing which we value most now as a woman, I think, is independence more than money or anything else. So you have completely reinvented yourself, from a journalist to an entrepreneur to an author. How difficult was that?
Wasn't easy, have to say. To begin with, when you leave a very, very exciting job in the front of television every night and decide that you're going to go and build something from scratch, you don't find too many allies except your immediate family, because your family knows that you're being brave, and most other people think that you're being silly because you're leaving such a high-paying face on the camera job. Wasn't easy, but what made it really hard, and I said this in a recent Humans of Mumbai post, that when you are trying to go against the grain or create something that doesn't exist, people have nothing to benchmark you on, right? So when She the People was born, as the first media network focused on women, people were like, how can you focus a network just on women? And I think for me, for the first year and a half, it was a little bit of a struggle to keep having to argue this out. Because at the end of the day, I would say that, look, if women need to have a space where their voices are commonplace and not that one female in a mantle, we need a space of our own. We need to recognize women as mathematicians, book club founders, literature enthusiasts, and not say, here's news, opinion, and this tab is called women's issues. That's not how it works. Women are half your country. And at 9% of the global population, Indian women are twice the size of the United States of America. Do we even think about that? That we're not a statistic, we're a force. We don't think about that at all. So that was the whole aim of She the People, to get out there and create a platform where women go out and try to learn how to live on their own terms. Fierce, feminist, fearless, as open as possible, creating a sisterhood where, you celebrate women supporting the other women. So that's how it came about. The main struggle, I think, was also because I was a business journalist. I was very hell-bent on saying, don't treat women as your CSR department. They are half your population. And you need to think of them as a huge lucrative market, because the minute you do that, you give them an importance they deserve. And you do not sort of say that, okay, for women, go to HR, go to diversity, go to something else and something else. You put it into the CEO's head, man or woman. Women, market, have to notice.
And what about being an author from there then?
Being a what? I sorry, missed that.
Author.
Yeah, so from there, my author journey was, it was a natural fit for what I have been doing all this while. Though it did, of course, evolve. So my first book was an outcome of my playing golf with CEOs on golf courses. Again, a very unique book. There are only two such books in the world, one in the US and one in India. Which is an out and out business learning lessons book. And to my surprise, even like 8 years down, it's still selling. So that's Birdies in Business. Along with that, once I I got out of mainstream media and then created this. I wrote when I was 25, which is a little bit of it's a little advice from all people to their younger self. So, for example, I interviewed Sandeep Khosla, the designer, and said, tell me about things you never spoke to somebody about. When you were in your 20s, when you were 18 years old, how did you manage? What did you do? And these are stories of amazing struggles, like not finding a home, trying to break through a party circuit for a designer like him. Or I spoke to Dimple Kapadia then in that book, where she says that it's really hard when you're entering Bollywood and you are suddenly like the woman everybody wants. So, people just like think that it's so lovely that these people are so famous, but their own story is palpable. I mean, they were literally like, quivering when they got this accolade because they didn't know what to do with it. So there are fabulous stories there. And that was a book that also took me to different people from different genres. So you'll find a Rajdeep Sardesai and his struggle with journalism. You would find a Chidambaram and the fact that he used to be a Jhola carrying activist on a factory floor. You would find Shashi Tharoor, his desire to stay an author and how he became a politician. So really, it's called When I Was 25, not because when I was 25, which was very recent, but more so because these people and what they did in their 20s became a very sort of seminal moment of their life. But yes, so being an author was just a thing that I thought would happen to me anyway. I am a non-fiction author, I must add. So I do not place myself on a pedestal because people who write fiction have some sincere level of creativity. But yeah, I think I prefer the non-fiction space much more.
But I think there's still a long way to go. So we may see you writing fiction in the near future.
I keep thinking about it. There are lots of stories around me, but yeah, for the moment, looks like there's still more 2 non-fiction books on the radar. If that happens, yeah.
So tell me something. What would you advise yourself when you were younger, since you've come on this topic? That would be interesting to you.
So Pooja, one of my, I would say one of my most favorite parts about myself, and I do have some parts, and I've learned over time to talk about them without being that modest or shy, more importantly, is that I don't mind starting all over again. That's something that I have always done from the time I was a young girl with my parents. Thanks to them being in the Indian Armed Forces, we used to move homes like every year. So I used to move with them, make new friends, enter a new school, have new uniform, new books, new friends, new conversations, and just move on, right? Then once I got into journalism, for me, it was really important to move to places where I was learning something and contributing something, and they valued me. So over the course of my 20-year career, I moved every 5 years. And I moved to places which were starting completely new. So when I moved from CNBC to NDTV, NDTV was just still making up its mind about coming up with a business channel. When I moved from there to ET Now was really going to take on CNBC and NDTV, brand new channel. So I always have been a big champion of restarting, because it gives you a new learning curve in a new context. And same with the people. I mean, I think the day I finished my interview with Warren Buffett, I came back saying, okay, this first every month paycheck is not something I'm going to wait for. I don't want to do this. I want to take a risk. Let's give it up and let's see where do we go. But having said that, it does matter that you've spent so many years, so you can afford to take that risk. It's a bit of a position of privilege, I must admit, because you're like, okay, I'm not going to. I can risk 2 years of my life to experiment. So I have done that, and it's really helped me out because it gave me a chance to forget the person I was in the last 5 years and remind myself that you can try to be the next version of yourself.
Wow. So in 2020 era, as well as I think in the post-COVID era, there's going to be a lot of change in leadership. I think women are going to really emerge as strong, independent leaders and also going to play a prominent role in the world economics. Like we have a lot of prime ministers right now who are women leaders in today. So what do you think? How does your platform will, help to achieve leadership roles for women?
So I think in many ways there are going to be loads of leadership roles that will not just emerge in structured, organized businesses, positions, but I am most compelled by the idea that in the post-COVID world, we've recognized that we don't need to go anywhere to do anything. You don't need to be in fancy offices. You don't need to have to sort of, literally create stuff in that sense by necessarily leaving the comfort zone should you not choose to, right? Of course, there is manufacturing to be done, cars have to be made, etc. But the point I'm trying to make is really that we really need to recognize that this digital world gives a massive opportunity to women. And women are today seeing themselves not just as job seekers, but as job creators. This was the reason when She the People was born, we very, very quickly started focusing on women entrepreneurs. And today, I'm very proud to say that the country's largest female entrepreneurship community rests on She the People. And that has been
Wow.
really rewarding because people recognize that a woman can set up her own thing. She can get into some form of digital social sort of businesses. She can leverage her community. you know um, Pehle, they used to say this stuff around women when they meet each other, they're able to sell stuff to each other, right? Like the whole model around
Yes.
pyramid selling, lipsticks, different boxes, and so on. But if you think about it, why did it work? Because a word of mouth from one woman to another really meant a supreme endorsement without seeing a big celebrity on a poster, right? So I
Absolutely.
feel that the compelling opportunity for us here is the women's economy, which I call like the sisterhood economy. It is unorganized, it is disorganized, fair enough. But if a woman is able to create income for her family and break away from structures that don't let her flourish, why not? If a woman is shy about taxation or shy about setting a factory, but can create a little go down of her own within her house, why not? So I feel that the opportunity of where women will seek sort of a change for themselves, a monetary sort of reward, but also in the process to benefit the country will come from small entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. I mean, I think you and I must already be doing this. We send a message to a friend, he sends us a WhatsApp or something else, some other message form, and we're like, oh, how much? We decide to buy it, right? Do you
Absolutely.
really need a big brand out there? No. Do you really need a big platform out there? No. This is where we're going. The power of small businesses. So I think women will be huge contributors to that cohort of things. And as part of that, when women find that they are independent in any form of business, they just become confident. They start living their life on their own terms. I was recently chatting with, I think, Malika Dua or another person for an upcoming show where we were just discussing that if women start putting financial independence ahead of everything else, they will not have to worry about most things in life, because that's the one thing that sometimes compromises their position, right? So when I see leadership, I see leadership with empathy, skills that women already have, recognition of change, and the very, very quick reaction to change themselves and adapt to new situations. All these, which we used to call soft skills, but to me, they are like life saving skills. This is how skills should be. You can call them soft or hard because of some traditional sort of mindset. But women's skills are very, very useful in crisis or unusual situations. And if we, as a cohort of economic contributors, come out big, really, there's no looking back for it.
Absolutely. But I just want to ask you, especially in today's era, like, she, the people, of course, is growing and is breaking ceilings and helping, other women entrepreneurs. But still, there is a huge gender gap, I think, in pay and in the Me Too movements and stuff like that. How do you cover that up?
So, what do you mean by that?
So what I'm trying to ask is basically, what you're talking about, economic independence, right? So, but when you go to work in an office, there are these Me Too movements happening there, where and there is a pay difference also. If your employee is paying your male counterpart more than you, and you're working exactly the same hours, and these things are facts which are happening. So how does your platform help those women?
Let's take the gender pay gap example. It may not even just be in this. It could be in Bollywood. It could be as an author. It could be in sport. I mean, very few countries in the world, not even the United States, yet gives its sportswomen equal pay as sportsmen for the same sport, right? I believe that it's really critical to have this debate, to spotlight and question why this continues to exist, right? So let's look at the workspace thing, or let's look at anybody in sport. One of the things that we do is to pollinate these conversations among women who are just uneasy having them. One of the reasons these differences exist because we accepted them, right? I don't blame women for it, but I feel that now we need to resist them. When the voice of resistance becomes strong, people know they can't walk all over you like a doormat. So the first step to that is to pollinate a conversation, create an aspiration, and make people realize by giving them examples, factoids, and relevant data on how the rest of the world functions, and often remind them how they can too be entitled to the same money for the same work, right? So much so, women are now going ahead and saying even housework should be calculated because that's a lot of work. I mean, like, I say this 10 times a day, and I am considered to be an empowered woman, but I say it 10 times a day. How do women work so hard? I mean, there are toys to pick, there is food to cook, there is work to do. It's not easy by any means. There is no stronger power than the voice of another woman for somebody who has not got her voice out there. And that's why I feel that by telling stories of women who are breaking these barriers, or questioning the stereotype, or questioning discrimination of any form, that is a very important starting point. The second thing is having role models. The more I see another person who looks like my neighbor or looks like the other woman in the cabin in my office raise her voice or talk about her needs or rights or desires, I will not be able to garner that courage. So that's the second thing our platform does. Remind women and bring them together through events, through programs, through online sessions. She did this. Maybe you'll find inspiration on how she did it. Because that's just something that creates a sisterhood which has far more magic than any celebrity or some film actor coming and telling you some gyan about how to find your self liberation on some issues like these. So I think that's the second. The third is, the community itself has a two-way relationship with us, which means that if let's say we're doing the Digital Women Awards right now, starting next week, this is for young women entrepreneurs. when they apply for it, some of the winners get pushed up to get access with government projects or with large companies that work in this space, etc. So I think there's some exciting opportunities that we open up, which we call access, right? So for us, I think all of these things are interlinked. You can change a woman's mindset by simply showing her opportunity, and a lot of the other things fall in place. And I think that's ditto for stereotypes. You try and beat a stereotype for her, she'll go and look for opportunity. You know.
So, you are an inspiration for so many people. So, who's your inspiration and your driving force?
So, I look at it this way. For a long time, I used to be inspired by women who I saw on television and in magazines. But when I started She the People, the reason I started it and all my research during starting it really led me to very everyday women. I am very thankful, for example, to my nanny, who helps me create a support system so that I can work and follow my dreams. I'm tremendously thankful to my parents, who have spent a lot of their time, and my mother especially, who adjusted from a very conservative family to become a very modern woman. And raised extremely fierce, independent women who could question their parents, who could debate with them, and not have to kind of hide their expression. So for me, this is what really matters. People who are every day inspiring you. So many people around us are suffering from domestic violence, but they quietly, happily earn their money. Sometimes they have to give up their money because they have to share it with the rest of the family. They do it. And sometimes you look at your position saying, hell, I'm able to like be far more privileged. And I'm very thankful for that. But it's so hurtful to see so many people out there who shake you up on a daily basis with what they live against. For me, that's inspiration. And it comes every day in small and large packets.
You're also closely associated to female authors and, writers. So,
Yeah.
what are their major challenges in the writing fraternity as a she gender?
So
Do
for
you
us,
think there are
yeah.
any? So, is there any gender bias also there?
Data would show, and I believe this is not just India data, but international data as well, that for the last many decades, female authors from the very start of the Bronte sisters down to J.K. Rowling have had to don either male names or very neutral names
Oh,
where gender wasn't exposed, right? So, I mean, when Jane Eyre was written, people thought it was written by a man. Or when J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series, for a long time people thought J.K. Rowling is a man. Right? So, and I believe this is true for many, where people have just had to hide their identity or find like a fence-sitting behavior because they were worried that they will not become a hit. And then we've of course seen ample data to show that in terms of presence on mixed gender literature festivals, mostly the female is the moderator or is or the number of women whose books are being celebrated are far and few. I understand from my publishing colleagues and friends that contemporaries that today male authors continue to be paid much more than female authors. So I think that's definitely happening. But we might be around the mend. We are beginning to see some young authors. You're in Ahmedabad. Savi Sharma is a good example of an author based there who's a self-published author, a woman who's built it on her own, and is doing really well. So I believe that there is some change happening. But nonetheless, that was again the genesis of Women Writers Festival, because another festival person came and said, "Oh, why do women need another festival of their own?" And I said, you must give them an opportunity to just not have people here who completely want to hog the entire limelight. Because, as you know, the literature festival circuit is a rigmarole. The same three authors are everywhere.
absolutely.
And to be fair, you can only watch them once or twice. None of these festivals take a feminist stand. They will throw in a women's panel. And I don't believe that that's the way to go. Women authors are not belonging to a women's panel. Women authors belong to a discussion on mythology because they write mythology. Women authors deserve to be on a self-help panel because they seem to write in a way by which people can lift their lives and careers. Women authors doing fiction should be on a panel on fiction talking about what they write and how they write. And of course, there is feminist writing, there's feminist fiction, there is a feminist gaze in writing as well. So all of that, no wonder we've done a Women Writers Fest for 5 years, and Ahmedabad gave us a very warm welcome about 18 months
we
ago.
loved it. We
Yeah.
completely loved it. We're looking forward to have another one with you.
Yes, inshallah, we will.
So, what do you think of this era of censorship? What do you think is happening? Is there anything called intellectual independence that's happening in today's India?
So today's India is a very conflicted space. The idea of independence and therefore the idea of India is also up for a huge debate. Every one of us is jostling for our freedom, is jostling for our independence, independence of thought and independence of speech. Uh, I think it's a tough moment for a country because there is a great deal of unwritten, unsaid censorship. Something I believe that is here to stay. World over, there is a turn towards more conservative governments that believe in holding the mirror to, well, I suppose they believe in not so much giving freedom of choice and voice to people who want to go against the grain. I'm seeing this in the United States, and we're seeing this in many other authoritarian countries. In India as well, I think there is definitely a great deal of censorship that comes in the form of, cases. It comes in the form of arrests. We've seen some good examples of late of activists being arrested. I think all of this has many questions to ask on both sides. But most importantly, I feel that from a citizen independence point of view, people are beginning to ask, is this really worth my voice? Because what if somebody comes and says something? What if somebody, accosts me, somebody follows me down? And I have been hearing this, by the way, from the days of business journalism, because back then it was about who's going to open your file, right? And every government has a huge part of it that can be threatening, whether or not you're left or right wing or center. So I think it's an anti-establishment question, because most people who want to speak up against any establishment, and you can see it whether it's governments or relationships or business houses, you will find that there will be resistance, there will be action taken, there will be display of force. Definitely an age of censorship that doesn't bode well for those who have to be free, fearless writers.
So, how is it when you were standing outside the Taj Hotel, 26 by on the 26th of November, and I'm sure you must have had 100 thoughts racing through your mind and looking at the independence of our country, being literally on the thread out there.
So that was a turning point in my life, let alone career. Uh, I I have never felt so shaken about humanity and human nature. I've never been faced by the question, am I going to be a journalist or am I going to be a human in my reaction to this situation? I was also very young when I was in the throes of this. I was 25, I think, when I stood outside and was the first female journalist outside of the Taj in order to speak up and talk about what was going on at the Taj and go live from there. When the first grenade blast actually went on the back of my head, in the dome, it was very visible. Me and a male colleague of mine were reporting on this. Now, it wasn't like, the reason I say it was a very milestone moment for me is because I was thrown into that situation by my own will, in the sense that nobody assigned me to this job. I landed up there just as a curious journalist, ending up being somebody who realized that there was nobody else to support my channel and started reporting on it. And as I reported on it, I had so much going on in my head, as you rightly said. But the one thing that came up flashing more than anything else, before you do any reporting, ask yourself, should you be naming the people who are inside? Should you be chucking a mic at people's faces and saying, how do you feel? This is not journalism. And even at 25, for me, that's the one thing I was very clear about, that I am not going to do any kind of behavior where people are feeling that I'm being insensitive. This is the time when your journalist and the human in you reaches a crossroad and you look at both of them and saying, where am I going? At a time when so many channels were flashing names of people inside chambers. Some of you would be familiar with what chambers is. It is the Taj Hotel's top area for businessmen to have secret meetings, right? So chambers was full of people I knew because I was a business journalist and everybody knew I was reporting from outside, right? Because they could see me on TV. I made the choice not to name a single person. There were dads of young men who were inside, who were calling us saying, do you know if there's any info about my son? Do you know about my daughter who's stuck inside, my brother? We knew whatever we knew, we would share with the parents, but never on the channel. And for a moment, news business can be a little volatile. News business can be competitive. People asked us, why aren't you telling us, this channel is getting this minister online from inside the Taj Hotel? And I just put my foot down. That is not the journalism we should stand for. And 24 hours of being there should let you know. So not only did I feel that I stood for some good ethics during that reporting era, but I felt that I also stood out as a journalist. And I didn't have to say it. The other newspapers reported on this and they appreciated my coverage simply because I didn't go there as this star reporter shoving a mic in people's faces and saying, oh, how do you feel? How do you expect people to feel coming off a fire with half their family dead? This is very important. And in She the People, I even more feel that as we grow. Sensitivity in reporting. Let's not forget who we are and why we're there.
And I think, especially in today's journalism, don't you see there's a complete difference, as to when you were a journalist, like you rightly said, sensitivity. Do you think that exists even now?
So I would say I'm still a journalist because She the People is very much journalistic. But I hear you. I hear you because I also seem to feel that as a member of the Indian media, no matter where I go, people start debating with me just like as if I represent them all. And I totally understand that, right? Because I recognize that, people are upset with Indian media, or maybe even to a great extent, different media across the world is facing this. I think Indian media definitely has some soul searching to do to the effect that sensationalism is the moment of everybody's everyday, fame. Clearly, there's a lot less being checked. And there is the fire and fuel of social media, which is only adding to it. So it's one of those things, good publicity, bad publicity, any publicity is good, right? And people are just lapping that up within the media. There's also, we talked about censorship earlier. The reason there's so much talk about censorship these days is also because I think somewhere media has sort of overstepped in some cases and done reporting which doesn't seem like it's based on facts but like opinions. And opinions are good as long as they stay opinions and give others a chance to interact with. But when you make the opinion into a news and throw that as at your viewer, who have been humble but become smarter over time, I think it does make you lose credibility. So it's never been a very clean game, the media space, but certainly there were few credible names to think about. And I think those credible names are now aging, and we're desperate to find who will be the next few credible names in that space.
So true. So tell me, with an upsurge in visual content and rising viewership, where do you see books in a decade, like, paperbacks? To be precise,
Again,
where do you? So, with an upsurge with the social media, you have Audibles now, you have Kindle now, and, you have bloggers. Where do you see books like the paperbacks? Where do you see them after a decade?
I see them here. Okay. Uh, I mean, I wouldn't say this, let's say, for the newspapers as an example, but I see books everywhere. I see, physical books here to stay. For example, have a Kindle. I have loads of books. I haven't bought more books. I bought more books in 2019-20 than I have in my entire life. I believe that many arms of publishing are flourishing today because people are like in any cycle, they want to go back to a touch of reality, and I think books offer that. It's lovely to have access to many such opportunities, many such many ways to read in different media ways like Kindle or your phone and many other apps that are emerging, Hear Them, and so on and so forth. But I think the readers are also getting added to the reading pool. There is some amount of sentimental value of going through pages. I think this battle of digital versus paper has been around now for a good 10 years. I thought 10 years ago publishers will be gone, but they haven't, and they've actually seen an increase in their overall revenue story because they're doing different kind of stuff. For example, children publishing is surging. It's one of the most profitable businesses for any publisher today because they produce books, and children, we have screen issues more so post COVID. Nothing like reading books and seeing pictures and touching them and all of that.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think the young kids really need to start on reading also. So I think it's really nice for them to hold on to the books and, like you rightly said, see the pictures. So there's a question from one of our viewers, Kaveri. She's saying, do you think that half of the time some women don't understand the real meaning of feminism and hence it goes in the wrong way for them?
So, Kaveri, hi, thanks for asking me this question. I think, we are underinformed about what feminism is. And once again, we are often debating it in drawing rooms where people who are just generally allergic to the word are often saying, oh, you're the feminist types, you're a person who takes a stand, therefore you're a feminist. I think we all have to find our own definition. At the same time, recognize that broadly the movement is meant to seek equal rights. And I may add, and I often do, very controversially so, it is not a movement for equality of both. It's at the moment of women to actually get to the point where men have already been for centuries. That's equality. People keep asking me, why don't you have a movement called equalism? Why don't you believe in it? We're looking at equal rights, which means on date today, every right that other genders have should be available to minority genders. And to me, women are very much so in minority genders. So we ought to have that context as we look at feminism. Other than that, I feel everybody should find their own definition of feminism. I totally believe in that. And yes, more conversations are very important. Having more contemporary voices on feminism is very important. Some time ago, we won an award for a campaign called "Why Am I a Feminist?" and it was one that ran around, ran on digital. It had men and it had women. So I think that's been a very good way of normalizing the conversations among all genders.
So this one more question. Does calculated risk, courage, and blind jump somehow mixes when we term independent thoughts?
Calculated risk?
Calculated risk, courage, and blind jump somehow mixes when we term independent thoughts.
So I think risk is a very important factor of wanting to do anything. And if you are not a risk taker, then there is a little bit of an issue in terms of being able to explore something that would actually lead you to independence. So I feel one of the challenges that we currently have is that we overthink the idea of risk to the extent that whether or not we take that jump, whether it leads us to confusion or adds to the chaos in our life, I don't overthink it. I feel sometimes you've got to simplify it for yourself. Am I taking this leap or am I staying back? Will I regret this? I will only know when I get there. So it's, to me, very important. Secondly, if I interpret your question in a more philosophical way, I don't believe the idea of independence can be confusing. I don't believe it could be self-inflicting, because at the end of the day, we all need to find our space, and we want our space to be a safe space. And in that respect, it's very important that I define my boundaries for myself, that I'm only going to listen to everybody that much. After that, I'm going to do what I believe is going to be right for me. And I think this kind of an advice really came handy. Just to give you an example, when you were talking to me about leaving my mainstream job, I recognized that it was really simple so far as listening to everybody around me went. Because if I heard everybody, I would still be in that job. Because everybody thought, who leaves such a good job? Like, everybody wanted me to just stick around. I had the option to listen to them. But then I realized they don't know what I am capable of. And that only I can know. So I think it's like that. You have to look at independence, risk taking, jumping blindly. It's a mix, no doubt. And who said risk isn't a sort of, it's gray. It is gray, but fun.
Thank you so much, Shaili. I think we've had enough of questions for today. And I would really like to thank you on behalf of Ahmedabad Book Club and Karma Foundation. And one last question from my side. So, what next for Shaili Chopra?
For me, for Shaili, what's next? Okay, I think there's been a lot next of late. But yeah, I think for me, the primary piece is to build She the People from where we're touching about 90 million people a year through
Wow.
digital. I expect to take that to a 500 million people sort of figure, and try and reach more women and definitely reach more men. So that's an important factor for us. For me, the other thing is that I am in the process of signing up 2 books. So that's also taking up some exciting journey for me. But otherwise, I really think that right now I have goals to achieve the people. And then I want to think about what would be my next leap, because digital is still new. It's not like TV, which started in 1991 and then got its max. It hit its max like I think 2005 or 6 or whatever. So I think we have some time to go.
Great. So, all the best. I think you're going to achieve your target very soon.
Thank you.
And I really would like to thank you.
And everybody in Ahmedabad and all your group members.
Definitely. So, and I
Yeah.
would really like to thank you on behalf of Ahmedabad Book Club for taking out your time, and Karma Foundation, and sharing your wonderful insights for the session. And I would also like to thank the audience for joining us and listening to the session. And we will be back with such more sessions. So please stay tuned. And thank you, Shirley. I think you're doing a wonderful job for the women upliftment. And I
Thank you
think
so much.
every sphere. So I think, and we really do need it. So thank you so much. I think
Thank
a
you
lot
very
of
much.
women have benefited, and I'm sure a lot more women are going to benefit. And thank you for taking that courage and that independent thought to come out and start She the People.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.